Hey, it's Jaru here and I thought I would bring you all a shorter video this time around while I'm working on bigger projects. In addition, I wanted to revisit one of my childhood favorite games and see how it holds up today. Super Mario 3D Land. It was snowy Christmas Eve in 2011. I had just become the happiest kid on the planet, as I had just received a brand new Nintendo 3DS and a fresh copy of Mario Kart 7. And let me tell you, despite my harsh criticism of that game on my channel a few months ago, at this time, I played the hell out of it. Anyway, I later discovered that my cousin had received a Nintendo 3DS for Christmas as well, but in contrast to me, she got a brand new copy of Super Mario 3D Land instead. Even though she let me borrow her game card when she came to visit, I couldn't help but feel envious. See, I had never properly experienced 3D Mario before. When I played Galaxy and Galaxy 2 on my Wii, I couldn't play those games at their max potential as my nunchuck was decalibrated and I couldn't figure it out as a stupid kid. So, therefore, I was quite eager to play Mario in 3D. Thankfully, 1 month later, my grandpa bought the game for me and I got to experience 3D Mario at his best. I absolutely adored this game. It was the first ever game I managed to 100%, and even today, this game stands as my most played 3DS game. But of course, as is life, I eventually forgot about this game. Super Mario 3D World released 2 years later for a certain forgotten console. It kept innovating on 3D Land's core concepts and perfected them into a near perfect package. Nearly everyone on the internet also seems to have forgotten about 3D Land, and that really is a tragedy, given how excellent this game was. Or was it? After all, I could be completely blinded by nostalgia that I have towards this game. So, let's have another look, shall we? Has Super Mario 3D Land aged well? Let's hop in.
Pizza play!
After a stormy monsoon, Mario and Toads are awakened to a sad sight. Nearby Tail Tree has lost all of its leaves in the storm. Or, so you would think. In reality, terrible King Koopa stole those leaves to fuel his ever-expanding military. Not only that, he kidnapped Princess Peach once again. Seriously, Mushroom Kingdom needs better security guards. This is getting ridiculous. Anyway, Mario sets off in pursuit for his beloved princess throughout the world and comes across a plethora of imposter Bowsers as well as his henchmen. There are 8 worlds that Mario has to go through. Each of them have their different theme, but they aren't the same as in New Super Mario Bros. Series. However, while these region themes are quite interesting, they do not connect to levels themselves whatsoever, apart from few open levels. Though this isn't necessarily a bad thing. By going outside of established world theme boundaries, level designers are allowed to be more creative with their craft, which could result in more memorable and fun gameplay experience. And I encourage this type of level design as the game won't feel as bland and predictable, especially because 3D Land switched back to the stage clear concept rather than making use of the openness that Galaxy games or even earlier 3D Mario titles featured. This means that the game is quite linear in its progression as you go from one stage to another. However, in this game there are 3 star coins in each level that you can collect. But sometimes to unlock certain stages or even boss stages, you have to collect a certain amount of star coins. But did 3D Land succeed in stage clear formula? Well, more about that in a bit. When going between these 8 worlds and completing their respective bosses, players are met with these short cutscenes where Mario runs through an area combining these worlds together. They mostly contain information on Peach's current whereabouts as Mario often finds out that his princess was unsurprisingly in another castle. But these few letters are pretty amusing, especially this one where Peach first defeats some of Bowser's henchmen before having to flee out of their rat. It's just funny. In any case, every single world has a final level that is either a castle or an airship, and all of them feature a boss fight. These two boss level teams are fine, but considering how inspired this game is by Super Mario Bros. 3, I would have loved to see tank levels return just to add some variety. Anyway, World 1 and 5's castles feature fights against Tanuki Tail Bowsers, which serves as a fun throwback to fake Bowsers from original Super Mario Bros. From 1985.
Or I suppose these are more like chase sequences instead of boss fights.
Essentially, Tail Bowser breathes fire at Mario and the player has to dodge it.
But in order to defeat Bowser, the player actually has to close in their distance and get close to him, as the player cannot damage Bowser with projectiles or Tanuki Tail. Hence, the only method of eliminating him is to push these conveniently placed bridge switches that drop these fake Bowsers onto lava, therefore revealing their true form.
While these fights appear only twice, they get quite repetitive real quick. Worlds 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 have auto-scroller airships, and those levels only have two different boss fights. First one is Boom Boom, who makes his grand comeback from Super Mario Bros. 3, but this time he doesn't have a spiky shell, so players can actually defeat him by stomping him. To combat his lack of combat shielding, Boom Boom swings his arms into a spin to damage Mario, but he runs out of stamina quite quickly, which leaves him vulnerable. Second one is Pom Pom, who is essentially a female counterpart of Boom Boom. Instead of swinging her arms, she throws a boomerang at Mario, and her counterattack, after getting hit, tries to home in onto Mario from the air instead of just rolling around the arena like Boom Boom does. Essentially, these two are defeated in the same way: 3 stomps or a Tanuki Tail swings on the head, or alternatively 15 hits from fireballs. However, when World 7 introduces a boss fight where these two are both present, things get a bit trickier as players have to defeat them both to move on. Though undoubtedly, having only 3 separate boss fights in a game becomes really boring, especially because these fights aren't that challenging to begin with. As in hindsight, due to the lack of boss variety, each world's Bowser levels are incredibly repetitive to play through, because you can always predict who you will be facing against, and well, the levels themselves aren't that different from each other anyway. When Mario finally reaches the infamous Bowser's castle, he faces off against the real deal this time around. However, this fight works the same way as against fake Bowsers. Mario has to close in the gap to Bowser and lower down the bridge. However, after seemingly defeating Bowser, Mario finds out that Peach's alleged captivity cage is open, and as he runs to the castle's rooftop, instead of finding Peach, he comes across a wood cutout of Peach. Yeah, apparently Bowser can now survive being thrown into lava. Well, it's not like it has stopped him before, but now he can float using lava as a bounce pad of sorts. Anyway, this Bowser's castle was a sham, and Mario has to move his ass to the correct one. Thankfully, the real boss fight against Bowser is epic. I would argue that this boss fight is actually one of the best ones in the series has to offer. Mario must once more navigate through King Koopa's hazards, but when the platforms beneath him begin to crumble, players must keep up a steady pace in order to avoid Bowser's attacks and hold their ground. Bowser may also shift his attacks to throwing spike balls and even these old school barrels, which is an awesome throwback to the original Donkey Kong game. Either way, eventually players run into another bridge lever, which drops Bowser to his doom. Psych! He comes back with even stronger, faster, and scientifically hotter fireballs than usual. This section is overall probably the hardest platforming section in the entire game, as if a player misses even one crumbling platform, it is near impossible to come back without an aid of Super Leaf. In the end, Mario and Bowser come across yet another bridge, where Bowser gives his last chase. Then Mario steps on the last conveniently placed bridge switch, which defeats Bowser for good. Probably. Mario then takes Peach and flies all the way back to Peach's castle. The end. Wait, how can Mario fly with the Tanuki suit here but not in the base game? I need answers. However, there was another one who was kidnapped whilst Mario was busy saving Peach.
Help me!
Anyway, now with the story section being over, let's go through Super Mario 3D Land's gameplay. After all, Mario isn't specifically established for its amazing storytelling. Since you control Mario with 3DS's circle pad, 3D Land restricts Mario to just being able to turn in 8 directions. Additionally, 3D Land uses a digital movement system as the circle pad isn't really an analog stick, so to compensate for this, Mario has a run button, similarly to Super Mario 64 DS. This drastically downgrades Mario's movement capabilities compared to Galaxy or even Sunshine, as precise movement options are severely limited. However, this doesn't mean that Mario is terrible to control or anything. He can still jump, run, and duck, like in previous installments. Besides that, Mario can roll while ducking, ground pound while in air, somersault to any direction, long jump to access longer distances, wall jump from wall to wall, and crouch jump from a duck that provides Mario a more precise elevated jump. Aside from these, players can combine long jump with Mario's rolling capability to produce even longer long jumps. Roll long jump? Super long jump? Whatever. Additionally, while using a Tanuki suit, Mario can now do a tailspin move instead of just simply a rolling, which of course can also be combined with a long jump. Players may also utilize the 3DS itself to swap between a regular view and an extended 3D view with the D-pad, use gyro controls while using binoculars, and of course they may also use 3DS's lower screen to move the camera or to use an item in Mario's item storage, which works in a similar way as in new Super Mario Bros. Games. So yes, obviously this doesn't challenge Mario Odyssey in movement options whatsoever, but it manages to keep this game interesting to play it regardless. So Super Mario 3D Land is essentially a 2D Mario game but in 3D. There's no way around that. Players have to move Mario from point A to B in a linear fashion. No more do we have to collect items or do tasks to obtain power stars or shine sprites. Mario's health bar has also been removed in favor of a power-up system similar to 2D Mario games, meaning that Mario starts in his usual tall form, but upon getting hit, shrinks into a smaller Mario that doesn't have his signature cap for some reason. This system has its benefits, however, as Mario no longer takes fall damage and thankfully doesn't drown from lack of oxygen anymore. But any type of damage can turn critical real quick if a player doesn't have a backup item in their storage or cannot find one from nearby item boxes. Speaking of items, Mario's traditional power-ups make a comeback in this game and are not serving as gimmick one-time use items like in Galaxy titles this time around. Mario can once more turn into his Fire Mario form by obtaining a Fire Flower. As usual, Mario can utilize this power-up for throwing fireballs in rapid succession, which is useful for taking down grounded enemies like Goombas, breakable boxes, and also for solving puzzles. However, further and further in this franchise we go, Fire Flower is becoming increasingly less viable than other unquestionably superior power-ups, and it really shows. Yes, Fire Flower is still plenty useful, but since it doesn't provide players any other utility than a capability of throwing fireballs, it pales in comparison to our comeback boy, Super Leaf. In 2022, Super Leaf may not seem nostalgic or magical in any way, but back in 2011, Super Leaf was one of the key elements in Mario 3D Land's commercial success. See, Super Leaf was originally introduced all the way back in Super Mario Bros. 3 that was released in 1988. Do you feel old yet? And apart from thousands of re-releases that Mario Bros. 3 got, Super Leaf hadn't made a single appearance ever since. I mean, for fuck's sakes, even Mario Kart's Leaf Cup used to have a generic leaf as its icon instead of now iconic Super Leaf. Well, this was all till Super Mario 3D Land. It reintroduced this iconic power-up, and that itself spearheaded this game's marketing campaign. Finally, Tanuki Mario was back. But how does he play? Well, instead of using Super Mario Bros. 3's version of Super Leaf that was later reused in New Super Mario Bros. 2, 3D Land's Super Leaf serves the same purpose as Mario 3's Tanuki suit power-up. Upon using Super Leaf, Mario becomes Tanuki Mario with a Tanuki suit, which made a certain unnamed company quite furious at the time. Tanuki Mario cannot utilize the P-Wing ability of Raccoon Marios, which means players can only use Tanuki Mario for attacking enemies with his tail or falling down slowly while in the air. However, Tanuki Mario is excellent for reaching greater distances or doing precise slow falls on certain levels. And since Tanuki Mario can stay in the air for longer periods than regular Mario, Super Leaf becomes quite handy in dodging enemies and cheesing platform sections for basically the entire game. Therefore, having a Super Leaf in either item storage or equipped is a no-brainer for practically every level, since it makes platforming and survivability easier by a mile. Once players reach the special worlds, they unlock access to Statue Leaf. Statue Leaf is basically a one-to-one replica of Super Leaf, with the added benefit of being able to transform into a statue, similarly to Mario 3's Tanuki suit. Once Mario turns into a statue, he doesn't take any damage from enemies and is also ignored by most mobs in the game. However, while in statue form, players cannot move and they become sighted by enemies after leaving the form. Regardless, since statue Tanuki Mario offers zero downsides over the regular Tanuki Mario, it is basically just a direct upgrade to an already great power-up. World 5 introduces a completely brand new power-up to the game. By obtaining a boomerang flower, Mario becomes Boomerang Mario, who can, well, throw boomerangs. This power-up doesn't appear that often in the game, as it is usually collected in gimmicky levels or from defeating a boomerang bro. And sadly, I didn't find this power-up that useful. Yeah, there are some uses for it. Unlike with Fire Flower, Boomerang Mario can defeat multiple enemies with one strike, as his boomerang always returns back to Mario. As a result, players can, for instance, defeat a group of Bidibods with a single boomerang. Players can also use a boomerang to gather objects like coins and star coins. Sadly, because the 3DS's circle pad can only point in 8 directions, aiming can occasionally be overly challenging. Since Boomerang Flower is often only available in gimmick stages, those gimmick stages often feature a star coin placement where throwing a boomerang at it is essentially required. But as Boomerang Mario doesn't really provide any other utility than this, it quickly becomes obsolete in other levels where Super Leaf or even Fire Flower are just better than Boomerang Flower. Then again, Boomerang Mario can defeat Tribones and Fire Mario cannot, so it means it's better. Holy sh! Also, there's your classic Super Mushroom that lets Mario turn back to his taller form after taking damage, as well as a Poison Mushroom in Special Worlds, which makes a grand comeback from Super Mario Bros. Lost levels. Invincibility Star is also present as usual. Some levels also have a propeller box that works in the same way as Propeller Mushroom in New Super Mario Bros. Games. Players can reach greater heights with a propeller box and fall slowly, like with Tanuki suit. However, the propeller box can be quite handy in some situations, as it serves as a power-up to Mario. Even if Mario already is powered by a different item, that means if Mario takes damage with the propeller box, he loses the box itself instead of his already enabled power-up, so you can stack the propeller box and the power-up of your choice, which makes it pretty strong. And that's all the items in the game, or did I forget any? Wait, what? Whatever. Yep, if a player has died on the same level 5 times that hasn't been completed ever before, the game will aid the player by giving them a quite literal God mode. That's right. Game gives you a special power-up, an invincibility leaf, where Mario obtains a Tanuki suit where he is immune to all enemy damage. I mean, it doesn't stop players from dying in lava or bottomless pit, but the player doesn't take any damage from any enemy. Yes, that includes being crushed by Twomps and defeating this magic box that spawns Goombas. This was seemingly added in to give an aiding hand to kids that might struggle with some tougher levels. But to be perfectly honest, I dislike the current tendency of giving weak players a means to essentially skip any difficulty a level may have, rather than teaching them how to deal with the challenge. Learning how to overcome obstacles is an important thing in everyday life that every kid and even adults alike should learn, especially since Mario 3D Land isn't particularly hard game. To make the thing worse, if a player has died on the same level 10 times that hasn't been completed ever before, the game gives them an additional power-up, a peeving block, that skips the entire level and puts the player by the end of the stage. All this teaches players is that there are easy ways out in the game, which may even prompt players to fail in purpose in order to skip levels that even slightly frustrates them. Not only does this make the game exceedingly unfun to go through, but it also removes any difficulty that it presents. But hey, if anything else, these power-ups help the game get a higher rating in the eyes of video game journalists. Super Mario 3D Land's first level is pretty much the perfect starter level for a brand new Mario platformer. It showcases everything that is new about the game in a simple fashion. 2D level design in 3D landscape, walkable, tight ropes, bounceable music blocks, climbable trees, Tanuki Mario, 3D illusion gimmick, hidden rewards out of regular camera view that is accessible via exploration, erasable gears, giant enemies, and of course, binoculars. In later levels, these ideas are expanded further. Levels that are shown in 2.5D camera angles that still have the rules of a 3D platformer. Music blocks that throw Mario into the sky with either precise platforming or a free running section that rewards players with a star coin at the end. By closely paying attention to playable regions out of camera's view, players can find secret exits that provide them world skips in World 1 and World 4.
However, these secret exits are only capable putting you one world ahead.
Players can access secrets like star coins by finding hidden raisable gears.
And by aiming binoculars at toads, they can sometimes give you useful information on where the flagpole is, or even grant you a star coin for noticing them.
And while many of these levels are excellent, they feel out of place most of the time. Many of these platforms that Mario runs on are just floating in the air without a single care about gravity, almost as if level designers for this game forgot that they are not making levels for Galaxy titles anymore.
Even further, I would argue that many of these level design tropes were used in Galaxy games just a couple of years prior to 3D Land.
The biggest concern when it comes to this game, and 3D Land's successor, was that the stage-cleared approach to the 3D Mario formula would kill out creativity and innovativeness that earlier 3D Mario games had set the foundation for prior. 2D Mario games are fun on their own right, but their level design is largely predictable and samey throughout, no matter what level team is used. And well, 3D Land reuses its concepts all the time. For example, I lost count on how many copy-pasted special sections we have where Mario runs and jumps through clouds killing Bitty Butts over and over and over and over and over again before obtaining a star coin.
In fact, many of these special stages are actually just remixed versions of the original stages in the game, which means that special stages are mostly just the same stages you have played before. It just feels pretty lazy. Level designers didn't make that many original stages when it comes to Special World, because I would love to see more. But is reusing level teams or levels themselves necessarily a bad thing?
3D Land may reuse many of its level gimmicks or teams over and over again, but somehow level designers found out a way to reuse those ideas in new fashion level after level. And goddamn, are these levels a joy to play. The way 3D Land uses its level concepts is outright clever. Yes, they are reused at times, but outside of those blatantly remixed speedrun levels in special worlds, not a single level feels entirely the same.
For example, I absolutely adored how World 4-Airship utilized a mix of flip-swap platforms and auto-scrolling camera to its advantage.
How about levels where players have to activate the switch that builds these time-limited tile bridges? Those were fun, and let me tell you, they get quite hectic real quick.
Or how in World 8-1 you can skip most of the hazards completely with careful platforming.
In fact, this ending sequence with rolling spikes can be completely skipped with a Tanuki suit. Also, I personally really like these TikTok clock style levels that are introduced in World 7 and become some of the most challenging levels in special worlds. Secrets are scattered all over, and even if they might feel underwhelming at times, 3D Land is very smart in maintaining its difficulty when it comes to secrets. These levels often hide secrets right in front of the player, but the game utilizes its fixed camera in a way that even experienced players may have difficulty finding them.
For example, World 4-2's secret exit.
Yeah, any player could see that this area isn't closed off, but the secret exit itself is hard to access without a Tanuki suit or an ability to confidently wall jump, and this level doesn't give you Tanuki suit, it actually gives you Fire Mario, so good luck. And right before this moment, this stage has given players plenty of chances to practice their wall jumps, which was a valid method to completely skip most of these levels' platforming gimmicks. And yes, I absolutely adore when the level first teaches you a mechanic and then forces you to use it in a very challenging way. It's just brilliant in my opinion. Many people may despise these short speedrun levels that reintroduced cosmic clones from Super Mario Galaxy 2, but I like how quickly they turn into carnage once these clones learn how to become 4 times as big. Holy fucking shit! And it is respectable how every individual level tries introducing something new level after level, even if it's something as goofy as literally placing the flagpole next to the start point. I swear this was a huge fuck you from Nintendo to anyone who didn't have Tanuki suit on. Similarly to Galaxy titles, players can unlock Luigi after beating the main game and rescuing him from Special 1 Worlds' castle. Then players can switch to Luigi at any time by tapping his icon on 3DS's bottom screen. Unlike in Galaxy games and 3D World, Luigi is essentially just a visual and auditory change, as he doesn't have special abilities compared to Mario.
Or, according to IGN, he stares at secrets like hidden items, but I don't know how true this claim is in actuality.
Additionally, while obtaining Super Leaf or Statue Leaf, Luigi turns into Kitsune Luigi, rather than having his own Tanuki form. Having Mario and Luigi in the game is all good and dandy, till you realize you need to complete every single level in the game with both Mario and Luigi. Collect every star coin, including ones from mystery box stages. Oh yeah, I forgot these mystery box stages, they just give you like challenge and you need to complete them fast, and you get the star coin and they're pretty easy. They're even in the levels itself, they're not just in the world map. Anyway, moving on. Hit top of the flagpole with both Mario and Luigi and beat the final boss twice in order to unlock this game's final level.
Special 8-Crown.
Yep, that's right. Players have to complete every single level in the game twice for 100%. After beating all levels in Special Worlds, Mario and Luigi receive another letter from Bowser where they learn that Bowser has kidnapped the princess again. Yep, Bowser wasn't actually fully defeated last time around. I mean, to be fair, in Special Worlds we weren't really fighting Bowser, but rather fighting Tri-Bowser, so perhaps the real Bowser was masterminding the new kidnapping all along. In the rematch, Bowser is more agile and also creates those ultra-hot fireballs at faster pace during his second phase, making dodging them very difficult. But after finishing the final boss for the second time, players will get another letter where Peach and Toads are wearing the Tanuki suit, which directly hints at Super Mario 3D World, where both Peach and Toad are playable. Oh yeah, and also, if you complete the final boss with Luigi and when you rescue Peach, instead of getting a firework that has an heart on them, you don't get that one. You only get that with Mario. But how about Special 8 Crown then? Well, this level is a spiritual success to Perfect Run from Galaxy 2, and yeah, it may be disrespectful to say this because it is nowhere near as difficult as Perfect Run. It is still pretty tough. Throughout this level, players don't receive a single power-up at any point, meaning that even one mistake against any foe can turn lethal real fast. And let me tell you, while I had certainly completed this when I was a kid on a real 3DS, all the footage for this video was captured using Citra emulator and a broken Xbox One controller, and this level was excruciating to play due to input latency. Players have to successfully prompt multiple perfect jumps, for example landing on this specific block, so Mario or Luigi can run across these small gaps, or bouncing off this toad while jumping at a precise place and holding down the jump button to gain maximum altitude to make the jump. And 3D Land's fixed camera makes it as hard as possible as it can screw over the player's vision. Not only that, the game throws a double boss fight against Boom Boom and Pom Pom at players and then bombards them with falling bob-bombs, constantly following Cosmic Clone and collapsing donut lifts. But once it is all over, players can finally rejoice as they have finished Super Mario 3D Land. So, has Super Mario 3D Land aged well? Indeed it has, these levels are so much fun. It is still as fun to play through as it was in 2012 and is unquestionably among the best 3DS games available. But all of that does not matter. Even though 3D Land was a rather ambitious game at the time, it falls short when compared to its little brother, Super Mario 3D World. While I haven't yet gotten a chance to play the Switch version of 3D World, mostly because I don't have a Nintendo Switch, I have played the Wii U version of the game, and that game essentially perfected any complaint I and many others had about 3D Land. 3D World offers a wider field of view, so the players' environments are more clear at all times. 3D World doesn't reuse its level themes as much and has a creative concept for every single level. 3D World introduced a cat suit that is more versatile for movement options than a Tanuki suit. 3D World expanded the roster of boss fights and made Bowser fights actually more interesting instead of making them close-in distance snooze fest. 3D World has 5 playable characters, which each of them plays out their own role that make each playthrough unique. 3D World has multiplayer, unlike 3D Land that only used Street Pass and Spot Pass for Toad houses. And lastly, 3D World looks mostly amazing graphic-wise. Of course, it isn't inherently 3D Land's fault that it doesn't look as good as other 3D Mario titles. After all, it ran on an inferior hardware, and the only reason for why my footage in this video doesn't look all pixelated is because I use Citra's upscaling methods to make the game somewhat bearable to look at. But after all of this, Super Mario 3D Land feels and plays more like a prototype, a tech demo of sorts, to test out different mechanics for 3D World. And that's completely okay. After all, 3D Land was the Mario game on the go, and easily the best handheld 3D Mario released at the time, even if there wasn't much competition on that till Odyssey came out anyway. But Super Mario 3D Land is still an amazing game, and if you have a 3DS, I absolutely recommend you all to try it out, as it is really fun to play. So, Super Mario 3D Land has indeed aged well. Thanks for watching everyone, and Merry Christmas to you all.